Throughout the numerous adventures of Tintin, our reporter Tintin and his companion Snowy have encountered many difficult situations in their journeys around the globe. Today is no different. I will be taking on a most important responsibility, that being the ranking of all of the Tintin volumes in a tier list. Which adventures stand at the top and which miss the mark? It is important to note that this is all subjective and just my opinion. I'd love to hear what your own thoughts are in the comments as well. And if you do enjoy this video, please leave a like. Without any further ado, let's jump right into it. So how I'll be ranking them is from the best being S tier down to the lowest at F tier, and we also have this special not applicable tier which will just apply to the one I haven't read yet since it wasn't included in the box set that I got. By the way, if you're interested, I did an unboxing video of that box set on this channel that you can check out as well. So anyway, the first of Hergé's writings in this world of Tintin is Tintin in the Land of the Soviets. In this volume, Tintin, accompanied by his dog Snowy, journeyed to the Soviet Union as he has been sent to report on the state of affairs under the Soviet regime. He soon uncovers the propaganda going on, but also has many dangers he faces along the way. Now, the Tintin we meet in this book is completely different to the Tintin we meet in later books. He's also a lot more unhinged and kind of a loose cannon. So for me, ultimately, the Land of the Soviets ranks at, I think, a D tier because it feels like there is ultimately a lack of nuance to the story. But I did enjoy it for what it is, as it gives us a glimpse to the early days of the Tintin series, and it's cool to see how the series evolves from here. So put it at a D tier. Next up, chronologically, we've got Tintin in the Congo. Now, this volume was not included in the box set, so I was not able to give it a read, and so I'm not able to give it a rating for now, so I'll just put it in NA for now. Following that, we've got Tintin in America. In this adventure, Tintin is tasked with investigating and reporting on the organized crime occurring in Chicago, but his arrival in the city is not appreciated as he gets targeted by the gangsters. There's also some Wild West elements in this story, and so this story for me is a solid C tier. It does things well to keep you engaged, and there is a definite improvement from the Land of the Soviets. Now, the next one we've got is the Cigars of the Pharaoh. In this adventure, we are introduced to some iconic characters of the series, first being Rastapopoulos, who in this book presents himself as a film director. We also get to meet Thompson and Thompson, who go after Tintin, believing he is responsible for smuggling opium. What I liked about this adventure was the use of the symbol that appears on the cigars to create a mystery that Tintin investigates more, to find out that it is connected to something much larger, being an international drug smuggling operation. I think that this adventure deserves a spot in B tier. It creates a really interesting mystery for us as readers and is linked to the next book as well, actually, which is, I'll need to scroll down a little, The Blue Lotus. So the next book is The Blue Lotus. Right away, I'm thinking this is going in S tier. There's a lot of nice and detailed artwork throughout this. Tintin's journey to Shanghai takes him on an investigation around the poison that drove people mad back in the Cigars of the Pharaoh, and through his time in China, he learns more about the opium smuggling ring. There's also emotional elements in this story which spark the friendship between Tintin and Chang. It remains an iconic installment in the series to this day, and so I think it deserves to be our first S tier placement. And so after the Blue Lotus, we've got The Broken Ear. With this one, I have some mixed feelings. On one hand, Tintin finding himself accidentally in the middle of a revolution makes for some of the best humor in the series. But narratively, it got very bizarre and felt like a fever dream, as the plot felt like it was focused on multiple things which seemed to have hindered the execution of the story. I still enjoyed reading this, and it had good mystery and action. We also were introduced to General Alcazar, who ends up appearing in later books as well. So I'm thinking ultimately to put this at a C tier, but this is a book I feel my thoughts may change with a reread. And then after The Broken Year, we've got The Black Island. Now, first things first, what this book has got going for it is an amazing front cover. And beyond that, it's got a really interesting mystery involving an organized operation around counterfeiting money. It's a journey that takes Tintin to Scotland and eventually to a mysterious island off the coast with rumors of paranormal activity. It was creative how Hergé was able to give an explanation to why the locals considered the island haunted, because as Tintin discovers, the island was housing Ranko, a gorilla that was kept there by Muller to avert anyone from coming to the island and discovering the counterfeit operation. But that was no bother for Tintin, and especially Snowy, who was able to scare Ranko away and eventually capture Muller and the rest of the organization. But of course, that's not the last time we encounter Muller in this series. So overall, I'm actually leaning towards an S tier as well here. It had a really engaging mystery and an enjoyable plot. Now we go to King Ottokar's Scepter. With this, I really enjoyed the world building in this book with the fictional country of Sildavia. The detailing put into bringing in Sildavia to life was really impressive. One of the most memorable things is the pamphlet Tintin reads while on the page, which goes for about 3 pages, and it's very different to the amount of text you'd typically expect in a Tintin book. The story itself was really interesting too, with the main premise being a royal conspiracy to overthrow the current king of Sildavia by stealing the king's scepter, which holds great power in being a symbol that determines the legitimacy of who rules Sildavia. So it earns itself a spot in A tier for its suspenseful journey with lots of twists and turns as well as some amazing artwork. From that, we've got the next book, which represents, I think, a pivotal moment in this series, The Crab with the Golden Claws, because it sees the debut of Captain Haddock, one of the most iconic characters of this series. So yeah, many people would say that this series that the series goes up a level in terms of quality following Captain Haddock's introduction, and I'd definitely be inclined to agree with that. You could almost categorize the books as pre-Haddock era and post-Haddock era. But enough on the bigger picture, let's delve more specifically into the book itself. We are met with another mystery surrounding a drug smuggling operation, this time involving the use of crab tins for the smuggling that Tintin finds aboard the ship named the Caraboujan, the same ship that is commanded by Captain Haddock. But of course, the captain is unaware of what's going on in the cargo of his ship until Tintin informs him. They realize they've got to get off the ship and hence embark on a journey of trying to survive out at sea, then somehow in the desert. It makes for some funny events involving the two, and somehow they survive the multiple challenges they face. It's a story of great significance to the overall series, and I think it's also deserving of a spot in A tier. Now after that, we've got The Shooting Star. Now this book is very different to the other adventures we've seen so far. I really did like the more scientific elements of this story, where Tintin finds himself in the middle of a race to discover the secrets behind a meteorite that had crash landed on Earth. The story blends in some sci-fi elements creatively. Overall though, I felt that the stakes involved in this journey fell a bit flat, so I'm leaning towards giving it a solid place in C tier. There was a lot I really did like about this, and I felt fresh to read a plot that took on a different angle, but maybe one of the things it was hurt by was not having a conflict as intense and dangerous as other books. Now to the next book, and arguably one of the most iconic, or at least one of the most well-known books in the series, that is of course The Secret of the Unicorn. I mean, the movie from 2011 draws heavy inspiration from this book. There's a great mystery with the different unicorn ship replicas, which lead us to learn more about Captain Haddock's ancestor and their deal with the pirate Red Rackham. But also, to clues of a supposed treasure of Red Rackham's that has been hidden. And so we get this great race to find this treasure, but it doesn't prove easy, which is why this journey ends up going for 2 books, with the next book, Red Rackham's Treasure, being the second part. First though, let's give this one a rating. So I'm thinking The Secret of the Unicorn deserves an S tier for just how iconic, intense, and engaging it is. The tier list is starting to get flooded, so I have to zoom out again. Now, Red Rackham's Treasure, it introduces us to another iconic character, this time being Professor Calculus, who offers to help Tintin and Captain Haddock in their search for the treasure by using his invention of a shark-shaped submarine. His introduction makes for some amazing humor throughout the book, and the book itself continues where we left off, creating for an epic adventure. I personally think I would put it in an A tier. I found it to be really good, but maybe a bit less intense than the previous book, but still really good and deserving of its place in A tier. Following that, we've got another 2-parter, the first part being The 7 Crystal Balls. Another amazing book and a bit creepy too, but that adds to the eeriness of the book, where each of the members of the expedition who discovered the many Inca tombs get targeted one by one in a mysterious manner and fall into some sort of coma. And not only that, but Professor Calculus ends up disappearing. This book is really creative in its story and will be taking another spot in S tier. And the second part of that full adventure is The Prisoners of the Sun. So with this one, I'm thinking of putting it into a solid B tier. It's a solid follow-up, starting with Tintin and Captain Haddock journeying to Peru as they try to rescue Professor Calculus. Eventually, they end up stumbling into a group of Incas in the Temple of the Sun, with the help of their new friend Zorino. But the two are sentenced to death by the Inca prince. Actually, thinking back, Snowy was with them as well, so was he sentenced too? Anyway, in this book, Tintin showcases his clever side as he ends up coming up with a creative and intelligent plan by requesting their death to occur at a specific hour, which just so happens to be during a solar eclipse. Thereby, he manages to convince them that he can command the sun, and therefore is able to have him, Haddock, and Calculus set free. Later, they are also able to convince them to release the other explorers from their coma-like state. Maybe one criticism that people may have is that the resolution of the story could feel like a bit of a cop-out because of how kind of bizarre it is, but at the same time, it's done really creatively, so it still wraps up the journey really well. And so following on from that, we've got The Land of Black Gold. This book heavily involves Thompson and Thompson, and whenever they're involved, you just know you're in for a laugh. And so it's no surprise that this is one of the funniest installments involving them. The story itself involves Tintin and the twins investigating into an oil crisis, which eventually leads Tintin encountering a familiar foe in Dr. Muller, who we last saw in the Black Island. The story has some good mystery with different clues along the way, and of course, with some good humor as well. I'm leaning towards a solid B tier with this story. It does things really well, and yeah, the humor is impeccable. Alright, next up we've got another 2-parter journey. I can spoil it right away and just say that both Destination Moon and Explorers on the Moon are going in S tier. So let's just go ahead and do that right now. Whoops, right there. So for me, they're top shelves, upper echelons, the magnum opuses, you name it. These 2 books are probably most definitely among my favorites from the series. I know what made these 2 books feel so amazing was that together it kind of felt like a movie. Actually, within just Destination Moon alone, a lot of time passes. I believe many months took place in just that one book as they prepare for their mission to the moon. So it feels like we, as readers, have also been on this adventure for a long time as well. In Destination Moon, we are introduced to Wolf, who becomes an important character in both books. I really enjoyed reading all the scientific detailing put into the conversation, and also a fun fact I learned was that these 2 books were actually released way before the actual moon landing of Apollo 11 in 1969. I don't know how accurate the Tintin books are to the actual science, but huge props to Hergé for the creativity in theorizing what a mission to the moon would be like. This book is also not shy of any comedy. One of the memorable moments is Professor Calculus crashing out on Captain Haddock after Haddock said Calculus was acting the go. And with the explorers of the moon, we see them on their adventure to the moon, on the moon rocket. What makes this adventure so great was that the stakes were raised so much because their lives this time really felt like they were in danger. The scope of this adventure with going to space feels so beyond any of the other adventures we've had up to this point. And the moments are so intense when we find out Wolf had betrayed them all along, and now their journey back home was in jeopardy. And then there's the emotional and quite dark moment involving Wolf, where he goes and chooses to sacrifice himself in the end. And so these two books are full of joyful moments, but also moments of anguish, which is what makes them worthy of their S tier placement. Alright, now on to The Calculus Affair, another book centered around the professor, and this one is a taste of some espionage thriller with some detective work in the mix that makes for an amazingly structured narrative. All the little clues and signs that appear as the story progresses that help join the dots on what is going on around Professor Calculus make for a satisfying investigation by Tintin and Haddock. I was initially thinking of giving this just an A tier, but when I went back to revisit it, my mind changed towards an S tier just for how interesting the mystery with Calculus was done and illustrated. I think one of my nitpicks was that it felt like the colonel just gave away their whole plan to Bianca Castafiore of how they were going to get Professor Calculus to give up his plans of his invention when the colonel did not really need to go all the way and do all that. So basically he just gave Tintin and Haddock the resolution to the story on a plate. It's a small nitpick, but I think I'll take it into account and probably have it kind of in the low end of S tier, but it's still with great company though. And for now, the books are not arranged in order, but at the end I'll arrange in a rough order of how I would rate it. And so following on from The Calculus Affair, we go to The Red Sea Sharks. And we see this time the return of many antagonists of the series, including Rastapopulus and Alan. This book has a very interesting premise surrounding some international dodgy business. But Tintin, Haddock, and Snowy mainly see a way to get involved with this because of Abdullah, who had been having to stay at Marlinspike Hall for protection and has obviously been mischievous to say the least. Then they realize that it's because the Emir had been overthrown that Abdullah was sent to them, and so their genius minds decided that going to Kemet to help restore the Emir's control so that Abdullah can go back was the way they were going to go about things, which is hilarious reasoning to get themselves involved in the dangers that they encountered during the rest of the book. The book also touches on the undercover slave trading that Rastapopulus is involved in, but thankfully Captain Haddock and Tintin were able to help them out. Oh, and during this book we also met Scoot the pilot, who helps our guys out and will appear again in another book. I really enjoyed this book. I'm thinking of giving it an A tier overall. And then after that we go on to Tintin in Tibet. This one I think can be regarded as another classic, a very iconic tale with lots of emotional elements concerning the friendship between Tintin and Chang, who we met during the Blue Lotus. This time Tintin reads on the newspaper about a plane crash in the Himalayas. Then that same night he has a dream that Chang survived the crash, and so despite the low chances that he is still actually alive, him, Snowy, and Captain Haddock embark on a journey to the crash site. The story is somewhat different of the typical Tintin adventure, where we are chasing after the antagonists or trying to get away from them. Tintin in Tibet feels more of a personal journey for Tintin himself. It highlights his loyalty, friendship, and most definitely his perseverance despite all of the obstacles he encounters. And so the reunion between Tintin and Chang feels that much more special when it happens, and makes this another S tier adventure. Next in the order we have the Castafiore Emerald. Now this is probably also one of the most unique installments in the series. For one, this book actually takes place in just one location only, that being Marlinspike Hall. And it's a complete change of pace to what we're used to, kind of like a slice of life with mystery added in the mix surrounding Castafiore's jewels. Funnily enough, this book is probably Captain Haddock's worst nightmare. He spends all book trying to get someone to come fix the broken step on the stairs of Marlinspike Hall. Then Castafiore ends up inviting herself to Marlinspike Hall, and so Haddock, learning this, can't think of anything worse than staying there while they're around, so he tries to leave but ends up tripping on the broken step, spraining his ankle, and then having to therefore stay at Marlinspike Hall. And then to add insult to injury, he gets gifted a parrot that continues to annoy him. And then on top of that, Professor Calculus does an interview, and this interview ends up getting misinterpreted, leading to a magazine trying to claim that Captain Haddock and Castafiore are now engaged. So yeah, not a great couple of days for the captain. Oh, and in the end, the broken step gets fixed, only for him to accidentally step on the wet cement and slip on it again. The adventure is a great mix of humor with an intriguing mystery, and I really enjoyed that it was different to the usual adventures. So for that, I'm thinking it deserves a place in A tier for how it shakes things up in the series. After that, we've got Flight 714 to Sydney, the penultimate book of the series. Now this book is a bit of a mixed bag for me. The story was on pace to comfortably be probably like an A tier, with another showdown against Rastapopoulos and Alan, plus the return of Scoot, the pilot. It was all going good up until the story suddenly shifted to having telepathy and extraterrestrial alien abductions happening. Now I wasn't opposed to the idea of having these alien elements in the story or in Tintin books, but for this book specifically, it felt a bit out of place and abruptly introduced. Maybe my opinion could change with the reread, but I'm feeling for now like settling for a C tier placement with this one. Now onto the last fully completed book of the whole series, Tintin and the Picaros. This one was a fun and interesting read. In this book, we return to San Theodoros, where Tintin previously had been during the Broken Ear when he accidentally stumbled upon that political revolution. In this book though, we learn that General Alcazar's enemy, General Tapioca, has now taken control of the country and has imprisoned Castafiore along with Irma, Wagner, Thompson and Thompson for apparently trying to overthrow the government, and also alleges that Tintin, Haddock and Calculus are also involved. Nevertheless, they get invited to visit the country, although Tintin knows it's a trap. Regardless, they end up going there and encountering many challenging situations, and eventually they end up meeting up again with General Alcazar, who we're familiar with and is now leading the Picaros, who consist of anti-Tapioca guerrillas. There's a creative way in which they eventually go about confronting Tapioca, but Tintin, to help with this plan, makes Alcazar promise not to execute him. So it's a really funny and interesting adventure to end the series with. One of the things I found most intriguing was the second to last panel of the book, which makes for some interesting and realistic political commentary by illustrating an identical image to what the city was like under Tapioca, to show that even though Alcazar is now the one in charge, nothing has really changed except for the police uniforms and the change of the Viva Tapioca sign to a Viva Alcazar sign. It's a really interesting way to end the book off, and so overall I was really impressed by the layers that are involved with this specific adventure. So for that, I'm thinking of giving it an S tier rating, which is a nice and strong way to end the series. Obviously, it wasn't the intended ending. There's also technically alpha, but that is unfinished, so it wouldn't be fair to rate it since it was just a drafted adventure. Now I'm gonna try and organize this a little bit. It's gonna be a little hard. Let's start from here. So only thing in D tier is Land of the Soviets, so that's fine. If I were to organize C tier, I think I would go something like this. I did say that Flight 714 was still on pace to A tier, so maybe it shouldn't be all the way down in the bottoms of C tier, but it is one that I'm still unsure where to rate all these in order. I think I still enjoyed Shooting Star a bit more than Tintin America, so I think that's how I'd leave it for now. The only thing is maybe Broken Year is better than Flight 714 in all honesty, but for now I'll leave it like that. In terms of these, I think Prisoners of the Sun is the best of this bunch, and then Land of Black Gold as well in the second part. Then we go to A tier. This is going to be a bit more difficult. I think Castafiore Emerald deserves a bit of a place higher up for now. Red Sea Sharks I really was impressed by as well. So how would I organize this? Is this the best of A tier is the question. I might move this down one slot because I really enjoy Crab with the Golden Claws. I think I'd leave it like that, but I feel wrong for putting Red Rackham all the way at the bottom of A tier, but it's still A tier regardless. Alright, now organizing S tier. This is, I think I know my first is, as I said, Explorers of the Moon, if I can move it there. Then Destination Moon, the first part of that adventure, is second. Now it gets tricky. I think I was debating, as I said, with putting Calculus Affair at A tier, so maybe, yeah, put it at the lower end of S. Blue Lotus was iconic. Black Island maybe a little lower in the S, still a solid one, but I think these ones were probably better. But Tintin in Tibet for its emotional adventure. No, but Secrets. Okay, Blue Lotus was Tintin in Tibet. I think actually I'll do something like this. So, Secrets of the Unicorn for how iconic it is and whatnot. I think it deserves to be just above that. Black Island was, I think, Picaros maybe above Black Island, so something like that. It's really hard to organize because I keep wanting to move them back and forth, but looking at it now, I think I'm okay with rating it this way, but I might change my mind just in a minute or something as well. But anyway, I think let's just leave it as it is, and this is my final rating off of a first read for most of these books. Obviously, I'm thinking that opinions on I'm thinking that with rereads I would probably pick up on different things and my ratings might differ, but for now I'll settle with this as the overall outlook on everything. Let me know what you think about my tier list. Was I a bit too kind? I've got so many things in S tier. I do think maybe I was a bit too kind, or maybe the series is just so good that there is a lot of top heavy stuff and less bottom heavy books. Anyway, that's been it for all of the ranking of all of the Adventures of Tintin books. Well, nearly all. Obviously, Congo I hadn't read yet, so I had to put it in not applicable. Good thing we didn't have any F tier ones in my opinion. But yeah, that's where I'll put it at for now. I think I'm happy with how it's looking. It could obviously, my opinion could change with rereads and stuff, but yeah, let me know what your rankings would be as well in the comments down below. And if you did enjoy, please leave a like, feel free to subscribe, and thank you for watching this far, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. It's a really great series, really fun to read, and lots of iconic moments and lots of nostalgia as well. So yeah, that's been it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.